The stench of cordite hangs heavy in the air, a pungent reminder of the chaos that surrounds us. The ground beneath our feet is a frozen, muddy quagmire, sucking the warmth from our boots as we struggle to maintain our footing. The deafening roar of artillery fire and the staccato bursts of machine gun fire create a cacophony of sound that threatens to shatter our eardrums. The world around us is a blur of confusion and terror as the sounds and smells of war assault our senses. We're in the midst of a maelstrom, a vortex of violence that seems to have no end. The year is 1944, and the Eastern Front is a battleground like no other. The Soviet Union and Nazi Germany are locked in a struggle that will determine the fate of Europe and the world. The landscape is a frozen, barren expanse of snow and ice, stretching out before us like an endless white grave. The cold is biting, the wind howling like a pack of wolves as it cuts through our thin uniforms. As we stumble forward, our eyes scan the horizon for any sign of the enemy. The Soviets are known to be fierce and relentless, driven by a burning desire to drive the Nazis back and reclaim their homeland. But we're not just facing any ordinary enemy. We're facing a foe that's been bolstered by a clever deception, a ruse that's been designed to confuse and mislead. The Inflatable Army, a shadowy force of fake tanks, planes, and troops, has been deployed to deceive and disrupt the enemy's plans. The concept of the inflatable army is a clever one, born from the minds of the most innovative and cunning military strategists. The idea is simple: create a fake army, one that's convincing enough to fool the enemy into believing that a large and powerful force is arrayed against them. The inflatable tanks, made of rubber and canvas, are designed to mimic the real thing, complete with fake guns and turrets. The planes, too, are inflatable, their canvas wings and fuselages designed to look like the real aircraft that patrol the skies. But the inflatable army is more than just a clever trick. It's a carefully crafted deception, one that's designed to play on the enemy's fears and weaknesses. The Soviets, with their emphasis on brute force and overwhelming numbers, are particularly vulnerable to this kind of deception. By creating a fake army, one that appears to be powerful and numerous, the Allies can manipulate the Soviets into deploying their troops and resources in response. It's a clever game of cat and mouse, one that's played out on the frozen battlefields of the Eastern Front. As we move forward, our senses on high alert, we can't help but wonder what other tricks the inflatable army has up its sleeve. The technology behind this deception is impressive, a testament to the ingenuity and creativity of the military strategists who devised it. The inflatable tanks, for example, are made from a special type of rubber that's both durable and lightweight. They're designed to be easily transportable, ABL, to be inflated and deflated quickly and quietly. The planes, too, are made from a similar material, their canvas wings and fuselages designed to be both sturdy and convincing. The caliber of the fake guns on the inflatable tanks is a crucial aspect of the deception. The guns are designed to look and sound like the real thing, complete with fake muzzle flashes and smoke. The idea is to create a convincing illusion, one that will fool the enemy into believing that they're under attack from a powerful and well-armed force. The tank specs, too, are an important aspect of the deception. The inflatable tanks are designed to mimic the real thing, complete with fake turrets and tracks. They're made to look like they're capable of withstanding a significant amount of punishment, able to withstand the rigors of battle and keep on fighting. The plane engines, too, are an important aspect of the deception. The inflatable planes are designed to look like they're powered by real engines, complete with fake propellers and exhaust pipes. The idea is to create a convincing illusion, one that will fool the enemy into believing that they're under attack from a powerful and well-armed air force. The engines are designed to be quiet and efficient, able to be turned on and off quickly and quietly. They're made to look like they're capable of generating a significant amount of power, able to propel the planes through the skies with ease. As we push forward, the sounds of war grow louder and more intense. The artillery fire is relentless, the shells crashing down around us like a deadly rain. The machine guns chatter and stutter, their bullets whipping through the air with a deadly whine. We're in the midst of a maelstrom, a vortex of violence that seems to have no end. The inflatable army is just one aspect of this chaos, a clever deception designed to confuse and mislead. But as we struggle to survive, to make sense of the chaos that surrounds us, we can't help but wonder what other tricks the enemy has up its sleeve. The geopolitics of the Eastern Front are complex and multifaceted, a delicate balance of power and influence that's been shaped by centuries of history and culture. The Soviet Union, with its vast resources and powerful military, is a dominant force in the region. But the Nazis, with their ruthless efficiency and cunning strategy, are a formidable foe, driven by a desire to expand their territory and impose their will on the world. The Allies, with their emphasis on freedom and democracy, are caught in the middle, struggling to navigate the treacherous landscape of international politics. As we navigate this complex web of alliances and rivalries, we can't help but feel a sense of unease and uncertainty. The inflatable army is just one aspect of this chaos, a clever deception designed to manipulate and mislead. But as we struggle to survive, to make sense of the chaos that surrounds us, we can't help but wonder what other tricks the enemy has up TS sleeve. The technology behind the inflatable army is impressive, a testament to the ingenuity and creativity of the military strategists who devised it. But as we move forward, our senses on high alert, we know that we're in for a wild and unpredictable ride. The Eastern Front is a battleground like no other, a frozen and barren expanse of snow and ice that stretches out before us like an endless white grave. The cold is biting, the wind howling like a pack of wolves as it cuts through our thin uniforms. But as we struggle to survive, to make sense of the chaos that surrounds us, we can't help but feel a sense of awe and wonder at the sheer scale and complexity of the conflict. The inflatable army is just one aspect of this chaos, a clever deception designed to confuse and mislead. But as we move forward, our senses on high alert, we know that we're in for a wild and unpredictable ride, one that will take us to the very limits of human endurance and beyond. The sounds of war are all around us, a cacophony of noise that threatens to shatter our eardrums. The artillery fire is relentless, the shells crashing down around us like a deadly rain. The machine guns chatter and stutter, their bullets whipping through the air with a deadly whine. We're in the midst of a maelstrom, a vortex of violence that seems to have no end. But as we struggle to survive, to make sense of the chaos that surrounds us, we can't help but feel a sense of fascination and wonder at the sheer scale and complexity of the conflict. The inflatable army is just one aspect of this chaos, a clever deception designed to manipulate and mislead. But as we move forward, our senses on high alert, we know that we're in for a wild and unpredictable ride, one that will take us to the very limits of human endurance and beyond. As we push forward, the landscape unfolds before us like a frozen and barren tapestry. The snow and ice stretch out in every direction, a seemingly endless expanse of white that's broken only by the occasional tree or rock. The sky above is a deep and foreboding gray, the clouds hanging low and menacing like a physical manifestation of our fears. The air is cold and crisp, the wind cutting through our uniforms like a knife. But as we struggle to survive, to make sense of the chaos that surrounds us, we can't help but feel a sense of awe and wonder at the sheer beauty and majesty of the landscape. The inflatable army is just one aspect of this chaos, a clever deception designed to confuse and mislead. But as we move forward, our senses on high alert, we know that we're in for a wild and unpredictable ride, one that will take us to the very limits of human endurance and beyond. As the sun rose over the horizon on that fateful day, the Allied forces, comprised of American, British, and Canadian troops, launched a massive assault on the German-occupied territory. The morning phase of the battle was marked by an intense artillery barrage, with the Allies unleashing a torrent of shells from their M4 Sherman tanks and M7 Priest self-propelled guns. The German forces, however, were well entrenched, and had established a robust defensive perimeter, anchored by the formidable Tiger II tanks. The Allies' initial thrust was focused on the German left flank, where they attempted to exploit a perceived weakness in the enemy's lines. The American 3rd Armored Division, supported by the 101st Airborne Division, spearheaded the attack, with the objective of breaking through the German defenses and creating a breach for the follow-on forces. The Germans, anticipating this maneuver, had positioned their elite Panzergrenadier units, equipped with the latest MG-42 machine guns and Panzerfaust anti-tank rockets, to counter the Allied flanking maneuver. As the battle raged on, the Allies began to encounter significant supply line issues, which would prove to be a major hindrance to their progress. The muddy terrain, coupled with the incessant artillery fire, had rendered the roads impassable, making it extremely difficult for the Allied logistical units to maintain a steady flow of ammunition, fuel, and food to the front lines. The Germans, on the other hand, had carefully planned and prepared their supply lines, ensuring that their troops remained well stocked and equipped throughout the battle. In the afternoon phase of the battle, the Allies shifted their focus to the German center, where they attempted to create a breach in the enemy's lines using a combination of infantry and armor. The British 11th Armored Division, supported by the Royal Air Force's Typhoon fighter bombers, launched a series of probing attacks against the German positions, seeking to identify and exploit any weaknesses. The Germans, however, had anticipated this maneuver and had positioned their Tiger II tanks, with their 8.8 cm KWK-43 guns, to counter the Allied armor. The Tiger II, with its thick armor and powerful gun, proved to be a formidable opponent, capable of knocking out the Allied M4 Sherman tanks with ease. The Allies, however, refused to yield, and their tank crews, despite being outgunned, continued to press the attack, using their superior numbers and maneuverability to try and outflank the German tanks. The battle was intense, with both sides suffering heavy losses, but the Allies' determination and perseverance ultimately allowed them to gain a foothold in the German center. As night began to fall, the battle entered its final phase, with both sides engaging in a series of intense and chaotic skirmishes. The Allies, having gained a foothold in the German center, sought to expand their bridgehead and create a solid foundation for their follow-on forces. The Germans, however, were determined to prevent this and launched a series of fierce counterattacks, using their Panzer Grenadier units and Tiger II tanks to try and drive the Allies back. The night fighting was marked by a series of brutal and intense engagements, with both sides suffering heavy losses. The Allies' lack of communication and coordination, however, began to take its toll, as units became isolated and disoriented in the darkness. The Germans, on the other hand, had carefully planned and prepared their communication networks, allowing them to maintain a high degree of coordination and control throughout the battle. The Allied forces' communication failures were further exacerbated by the fact that their radio equipment was not designed to operate in the dense, muddy terrain, which caused significant signal attenuation and interference. The Germans, however, had developed specialized communication equipment, including the highly effective Fu-Ge-5 radio set, which allowed them to maintain seamless communication between their units, even in the most challenging environments. As the night wore on, the Allies' situation became increasingly precarious, with their units fragmented and disorganized. The Germans, sensing victory within their grasp, pressed their advantage, launching a series of devastating counterattacks that threatened to engulf the Allied forces. The Allies, however, refused to yield, and their troops, despite being exhausted and depleted, continued to fight on, using their ingenuity and determination to hold back the German tide. The battle was a testament to the bravery and resilience of the soldiers on both sides, who fought with valor and distinction despite the odds. The Allies' use of innovative tactics, including the employment of inflatable tanks and other decoys, had initially caught the Germans off guard, but the enemy's superior firepower and coordination had ultimately allowed them to regain the initiative. As the night drew to a close, the outcome of the battle was far from certain, with both sides having suffered heavy losses and the Allies' position remaining precarious. The stage was set for a final, decisive confrontation, which would determine the fate of the war and the future of Europe. As the dust settled on the infamous Inflatable Army debacle, it became clear that the turning point in this bizarre conflict was not a traditional military tactic, but rather the unforeseen consequences of Mother Nature herself. The weather, which had been calm and sunny in the days leading up to the battle, took a drastic turn for the worse as a freak storm rolled in, bringing with it powerful gusts of wind and torrential rains. The inflatable tanks, which had been deployed with such fanfare, were no match for the tempest, and they were quickly deflated, rendering them useless on the battlefield. The mistake, in hindsight, was the failure to account for the unpredictable nature of the weather. The military planners, in their haste to deploy this new and innovative technology, had neglected to consider the potential risks and limitations of the inflatable army. The specific weapon that had been touted as a game-changer, the inflatable tank, proved to be a liability in the face of adverse weather conditions. The enemy, who had been caught off guard by the initial deployment of the inflatable army, was able to regroup and launch a counterattack, taking advantage of the chaos and confusion caused by the deflation of the inflatable tanks. The cost of this debacle was staggering. Casualty statistics showed that over 10,000 soldiers were killed or wounded, with many more missing in action. The destruction of infrastructure was equally devastating, with entire cities and towns reduced to rubble. The inflatable tanks, which had been designed to be easily transportable and deployable, proved to be little more than expensive and cumbersome targets for the enemy to destroy. The financial cost of the conflict was estimated to be in the billions, with the majority of the expenses going towards the development and deployment of the inflatable army. The legacy of the inflatable army debacle is one of caution and humility. The event served as a stark reminder of the importance of careful planning and consideration in military strategy. The deployment of new and untested technology, no matter how promising it may seem, must always be approached with a critical and nuanced perspective. The inflatable army debacle also highlighted the need for military planners to consider the potential risks and limitations of new technology, and to develop strategies that take into account the unpredictable nature of warfare. In the years that followed, the military underwent a significant transformation. With a renewed focus on traditional military tactics and strategies, the development of new technology continued. But it was approached with a more cautious and measured perspective. The inflatable army debacle served as a reminder that, no matter how advanced or sophisticated technology may become, it is only as effective as the strategy and planning that underlies its deployment. The impact of the inflatable army debacle was not limited to the military, however. The event also had a profound impact on the civilian population, who were left to pick up the pieces and rebuild in the aftermath of the conflict. The economic costs of the war were felt for generations, and the social and cultural fabric of the affected communities was forever changed. The inflatable army debacle served as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of war, and the importance of pursuing peaceful and diplomatic solutions to conflict. As the years passed, the memory of the inflatable army debacle began to fade, and it became a cautionary tale told to military strategists and historians. However, the lessons learned from this event continue to shape military strategy and planning to this day. The importance of careful consideration, nuanced perspective, and humility in the face of uncertainty are timeless principles that will always be relevant, no matter how advanced or sophisticated technology may become. And so as we reflect on the inflatable army debacle, we are reminded that the true horror of war is not the technology or the tactics, but the human cost. The inflatable tanks, which had been designed to be so formidable on the battlefield, were ultimately no match for the unpredictable nature of war itself. As we look to the future and the continued development of new and advanced military technologies, we would do well to remember the lessons of the inflatable army debacle, and to approach the business of war with a sense of caution, humility, and reverence for the devastating power of conflict. The inflatable army may have been deflated, but the memories of its consequences will haunt us forever. A chilling reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked ambition and the importance of humility in the face of uncertainty, and the horrifying truth that, in the end, it is not the technology that kills, but the men and women who wield it, and the innocent civilians who are caught in the crossfire, leaving us with a haunting question: what will be the next inflatable army, and when will we learn from our mistakes?